what are some of the conclusions that you can draw from this research that give us a view into what the future of AP and P2P will look like?
Great. So, Charles, as you know, our partners, focuses specifically on supply management, and so that really is from a business function standpoint. We look at the activities that happen in sourcing and procurement departments and in AP operations. The reason why we look at that is that we really do view that process as a singular one. We look at the relationship that organizations have with their suppliers as a singular relationship. What we've seen in our research, right, and this would also include some of our more procurement-focused research, is that there's convergence between AP and P2P, very specifically. So in a research study we did earlier this year that tracked about 270 or so chief procurement officers and other VPs of procurement and other procurement executives, we saw that over the last 5 years, 1 in 5 procurement departments has really taken over the formal ownership of the AP department. So that there's extreme convergence, or I should say very direct convergence between procurement and accounts payable, really giving a true definition to P2P. Right? We've talked about P2P on the procurement side, and it's really referred to the purchasing aspect or the procurement aspect. We talked to P2P on the AP side, and it's really been talking about the invoice processing or payable side. What we see now from a future of AP, from a future of P2P, is that they're really becoming a singular business process, and there's been a growth of technologies that also enable that to occur. The takeaway isn't that there will be necessarily one singular P2P department. There are certain industries, there are certain companies who, for controls reasons and reasons of compliance, would not, do not prefer to have both of those, both procurement and AP, fall under the same group. But that said, that doesn't mean that the business processes can't be linked. That doesn't mean that the technologies can't be linked. And that doesn't mean that the supplier experience across the relationship that they have with their customers shouldn't be linked. It is. That's going to be the future. Future has really started today.
Excellent. Good to get your view on that. TradeShift, of course, we have a view on this as well. We recently published a series called The Future of Business. And here we share our vision of how the future of business is being shaped by 7 key trends. And the key trends that we see are, some mega trends that are pretty commonly known: cloud, mobile, social, big data. But there's a couple of others which we think are going to make a big impact as well. And that is, the new generation of workforce coming in, the millennials, and their usage of mobile technologies, the internal and external collaboration between departments within an enterprise, and also between buyers and suppliers. That's another trend we see. And then the last one, which sort of is a result of many of the other trends put together, is the accelerating pace of business. Right. So we see those as 7 key trends which are going to shape the future of business. In your view, is there one specific trend which is a must-have out of all these for P2P organizations?
Wow, is there a must-have? I think that there are starting to be several must-haves there. I think the must-have is the internal and the external collaboration. If I were to pick one from that group of 7, and we can expand upon that in a second. I do think, though, that when you look at the need for organizations, for P2P organizations specifically, to become more agile in how responsive they are to changing business requirements that are a result of the acceleration in the pace of business, the collapsing of business cycles, you need to have technology and infrastructure that allows you to be more responsive. So that starts with cloud, right? I think that at least within a P2P context, the 2 to 3 year global implementations of solutions, It's not built, that process is not built for business today. It's certainly not built for the future of business. And so what organizations need to start thinking about is, there may be some requirements that require some parts of a P2P process to actually sit behind a firewall. But for the vast majority of organizations, that isn't and really shouldn't be the case or the consideration. You need to have solutions that allow you to integrate quickly, that are building in and delivering innovation in a much faster way. Beyond cloud, I think then we start to look at, I don't think we're at a tipping point yet for mobility. I think that, we recommend that organizations, if they're starting with a new P2P RFP, is that they put mobility on there to understand solution provider roadmaps. I think that we'll see a shift when we start to see IT organizations moving from desktops and laptops to tablets and other smart devices as their employees' primary way of communicating and doing their business. When that happens, I think mobile will come much more into play. I think that the changing the new workforce that's coming into play. I wonder, right? So I'm not a millennial, unfortunately. I'm a Gen Xer, right? And so I remember that when in the 90s, coming out of school, there was lots of talk about how this generation was defined and pros and cons. And I think if you were to go and read a lot of the material then, you would say that a lot of that was just fodder to talk about. I don't know that the millennials have specific generational characteristics that are ultimately that unique. What is unique about them is the business world that they're entering, right? They often say that technology that exists before you're 30, most people don't really consider that technology, right? Growing up, I don't want to date myself, but for groups that for business professionals that start work with email, that's just part of start their careers and email exists. That's just part of how people communicate. When they move to something like Google Chats, what we're having here is a way to communicate. That's just part of the normal course of business. For someone who started work 30 years ago, these are new innovations. And so what you have with the younger generation is a group that's going to be much more adept at utilizing technology. And I think that bodes well for P2P professionals and the profession as a whole.
Yeah, and part of our point was that the new generation will be used to cell phones are not new to them. Email, the internet is not new to them. That's stuff that will always be there, all the time. But when they enter the workforce and they see they're asked to use these old legacy systems, there may be challenges because that's not something that they're used to, right? So the extent to which a P2P organization can establish an environment for this new generation of workers to come into and do well and apply their skills, the more talent they'll be able to attract.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Right. So I would say, right. So we're at that point now where we don't want our new employees coming in and learning how to, build buggy whips, right? It's sort of the, cars were introduced as a sort of a common analogy that people would use, right? You don't want to bring in new employees to learn on generations old technology. They're going to adopt it. They're going to be adept at it. Let's get them on the platforms that are going to really change the paradigm, the value that organizations can drive out of their investments in technology, which from our research is an area that P2P organizations don't thrive at. Right? We interviewed again 270 plus CPOs, an area that they saw as a very specific weakness in their organization, is the ability of their organizations to really drive full value or optimize their deployment and usage of technology. So the millennials should give organizations a step up.
Yeah.